Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm ARIQAH and today I'm going to explain about the 21st century. Okay, first I'm going to explain about the of the era. The defining event of the first part of the 21st century was the attack on the American target, including the Twin Towers in New York on September. The attacks had a huge impact in every sense emotionally, culturally, politically, and all over the world. Imaginative responses to it went through stages of shock, grief, anger, and assimilation. Other characteristic is the economic crash of wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and the war on terror after all contributed to create the particular atmosphere of early years of the 21st century. Next, I'm going to explain about the characteristic of the works. Since this era already gone through the wars, but many of the works are still talking about the impact of the wars, or even in some countries war are still happening. The works include novels, poetry, and dramas. Other major characteristic of the era is about women's writing. Even though in previous era women already have their own right to create literary works, but in this era, many of the major writers of our time happen to be women. Just as many happen to be gay or born outside the Great Britain, or whatever might distinguish them, characterize them. The first literary work that I'm going to explain is novels. Here, the famous author is Christopher Brockmeyer. His work is A Big Boy Did It and Ran Away, was and still is astonishingly pleasant both about the violence and about some of its roots and resonances. The second author is Doris Lessing, give insight into female experience in such masterpieces as The Golden Notebook and The Summer Before the Dark. The third is Kazuo Ishiguro, in his linked stories of music entitled Nocturnes in 2009, speaks of the kind of the text where the words themselves were happy but the interpretation was pure heartbreak. The fourth author here is Arvin Walsh. He has brought several of the characters from Trainspotting in novels such as Glue and Skate Boys. A descendant bride revisits a character from Glue, and the Blade Artist follows Bagby, one of the heroes in Trainspotting, to his now more or less settled life in California. The bedroom secret of Master Chef and the sex life of Siamese twins move away from his familiar Edinburgh or less setting, but as the title suggests, maintain an interest in topics that might once have been considered taboo. The fifth author is Salman Rushdie, was for many years the best-known writer of English fiction, largely because of the fatwa against him. Joseph Anton, the name he took on his identity of Joseph Conrad and Anton Chekhov. It is the third-person narration giving a sense of distance from the action in which he is all too unwilling participant. The sixth author is Beryl Bainbridge. Beryl Bainbridge novels gained her a huge reputation in her lifetime, but she was constantly runner-up for the Booker Prize. Her final novel, published after her death in 2010, entitled The Girl in a Polka-Dot Dress, is unusual in that it is set in the USA in 1964 and takes the typical Bainbridge character, a damaged English rose, on a journey in search of a mysterious man from her past. The second literary work that I'm going to explain is poetry. Poetry has flourished in the early 21st century, with some poets become very significant public figures. Many are, of course, tuned into the changing vibe, but the poetry often distances itself from the quotidian, probing the eternal values, although often from the stimulus of actual present events. The first author is Hanun. He took the vital new form of major translation of such works as Beowulf and books of Virgil's Aeneid. Poetry is often seen as the genre that can come close to the true rendering of nature, from Wordsworth to Ted Hughes. Poetry often seen as the genre that can come closest to the true rendering of nature, from Wordsworth to Ted Hughes. A long time of nature poet has led to the major current figures such as Alice Oswald. He has won Man Awards for her poetry, and her two publications, A Sleepwalk on the Severn and Weeds and Wildflowers, won the inaugural Ted Hughes Memorial Prize, showing her as the heir to his crown as the nation's major poet of nature. The next literary work is drama. Since the turn of the millennium, there has been a flourishing new drama for the theater as well as for the television and the cinema. Drama has had something of a golden age, despite recession and cutbacks, and it flourished in tiny French theater as well as in the established London and provincial centers. One of the defining texts of the time is a work titled Stuff Happens by David Hare. It is a political documentary about the Iraq War, which premiered to coincide with the 3rd anniversary of 9 November at the National Theatre in London in 2004 and soon after in New York. The next author is Sarah Kane. Her later plays, such as Queens, revived the National Theatre in 2016, go deeper to imagery of depression and sexual anxiety. Like Harold Pinter in his later plays, notably Montaigne language, Sarah Kane is overtly political in her examination of the imminent violence just beneath the surface veneer of society and behavior. I think that's all that I can deliver for you today. But before I close my explanation, here I'm going to explain about the lesson that I already learned from this era. That lots of the works are still describing about the worst, suburbs, and even visualize of the real mental problems that experienced by the society nowadays. It is undeniable that the era are still growing and keep representing the things that already happened or still happening in our lives. I think that's all that I can deliver. Thank you so much for your attention and for watching my videos. And for the last, I say wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.